And good evening, and welcome to Candid Conversations with Coach Pamm. And I am on tonight with my special guest, Charles Johnson. And I want to give him a welcome, a shout out. Charles, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charles Johnson. I'm the owner of Guided Pathway to Success, where we change the trajectory of students' lives. We do this through group STEM tutoring, standardized test prep, and high school and college admissions counseling. And so I'm deemed the test prep pathfinder because I help students get on the right path using preparation for standardized tests as a means to get to the life that they want, college and beyond.
All right. And so, how did you come to be doing this, Charles? Give
All
us a
right.
little
So
background.
real quick, 20 years in higher ed. Started everything from student affairs, student life, head of Greek life, ran a couple of campuses, and I tapped out as assistant dean of students at a large college in New York. And the thing that I found was most of the students who looked like me were not prepared to excel day one. The others did the necessary work, so when they hit the college campus, they were ready. And so I started a college access educational consulting firm that would help bridge the gap. So we do a lot of work with churches, nonprofits, some synagogues, some mosques, a lot of alumni councils, and those kind of groups to help individuals in the community get the best chance that they can to succeed.
All right, that's great. So, you know, we all are fairly aware of the statistics that say that there's an achievement gap, right? And so we are always somewhat, behind the majority. So, what have you found to be the best strategies to address that?
I always say that academics will be the key, right? I'm a third generation educator. My grandmother pushed in my head that education was the key. And so that's what I try to do with my clients and with communities is if we know that there's a gap, then you can't run away from hard work. And so usually it's the students that change their approach academically that lead to the changes in those, especially standardized tests when it comes to like achievement, whether it is the state test that you have to take or the tests that are now test optional, SAT and ACT for college admissions. But I think a lot of it is mindset, right? Because I remember maybe about 20 years ago, it started the conversation that the SAT was racially biased and our community grabbed hold of that. Even the students that excelled were like, "Hey, I did well, but the test was racially biased." And so, a lot of families, when they talk about the test being racially biased, they said, "We're not going to take the test," but the test is still important. My wife and I, we laugh. I watch YouTube videos at night, and one of the commercials that always pops up is a Princeton Review commercial that says, "The only thing that the SAT tests is your ability to master the SAT." And so what I found and what I try to do is I teach students how to take the test.
Right.
Regardless of how you do in school, families need to realize that the SAT, the ACT, even the AP exams are not the same testing strategy that you do on your everyday testing. And so once I teach them methods, tools, strategies that have worked over the last 10 years that I've been doing test prep, then I see a change. But I realize that, I'm pushing the stone uphill by myself, and I'm trying to energize a community, a generation to
Mhm.
where what I could do by myself, like 10 of us, 100 of us, 1,000 of us together could really change the world.
And that's why I'm here with you tonight. That we're going to collaborate together. The two of us are going to try to change the world a little bit more, right? Because I've always said that the
Yes.
test is simply any test, right? Is simply a measure of how well you are prepared at any one point in time, right? So, um, what do you have to say about the test optional now opportunities for the SAT and the ACT post COVID?
So it's interesting that you brought that up. You know, if you look at the newspaper articles, I believe it was on Friday that Columbia came out as the first elite institution to do away with the requirement for SATs and ACTs for admissions. Going forward, many schools that have opted for test optional put a deadline where they would graduate out how what that time frame is. Most years, I think it was like the class of 2025 applying to college,
Mhm.
and so I think it's a lot about data. You know, these test prep companies want to they want to be able to make the money because you have to realize that for one, the college admissions industry is a $6 billion a year industry. And so College Board and ACT Inc. are not going to walk away from their pieces of the pie. And so they're going to find ways to be relevant. But I think that in my experience, test optional, and don't get mad at me, Miss Pam, but I think that African Americans and brown families as a whole have taken advantage of test optional. Um, I have a very diverse target audience. I'm located in the DMV area. I live in Baltimore, but I serve clients in DC and in Northern Virginia. And when African American and brown families opted out of the test, my Caucasian clients continue to call.
Mhm.
Right. And so when it says like, you know, like for me, when COVID hit, I lost a boatload of money because the SAT and the ACT started canceling sessions. But if you let the narrative be true, people didn't stop taking the test. Affluent families found ways to continue to take the test and continue to submit grades. Now, when it comes to test optional, I was having this conversation earlier. This year, maybe around January, I got about 20 or 30 phone calls because very smart students had applied to college and got admitted. Uh, but the schools called back and said the admission was provisional, and that if you could provide test scores, that they could have free rides, they could be in the honors college and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
so it left our privileged students who were smart in a bind where they only had 4 or 5 weeks to prep for a test, which actually left them at a negative place. What I tell students and what I tell parents is um, prep for the test like it's not test optional. Because
Right.
the other thing is, if you have a if the standard college list is 10 schools, if statistics hold true, then maybe six of them may be test optional, but you may have some schools that you have to submit scores for.
Mhm.
So why not prepare for it?
Right. Right.
So
I
I
totally
tell
agree.
all of my families, regardless of what they're doing, test prep for the test.
Right. Now, in your experience, what are the most effective strategies for helping students overcome test anxiety, and how can these strategies be integrated into the standardized testing process to support,
Okay, so the first, so what I always talk about is um, the days that I hate is when I turn on ABC News or NBC News or CBS News and they say, "Oh, there was a student in Kansas and he got a perfect score in the SAT and a perfect score in the ACT." In the next few weeks, I get all these phone calls where our brown students feel like they have to be perfect and get perfect scores on the test. So, in my 10 years of learning the exam and doing my work, right? So, this is not a side hustle. This is my full time job. So, I take advantage of professional development with ACT Inc., with professional development with College Board. And so, I know the test. Like, I know the test. And so, I know the grading rubric that can get kids certain scores. So
hmm
it astonishes families when I come in and I say, "Hey, you can get 20 questions wrong on the SAT and still get a 1400."
hmm
And it blows their mind, right? But that's the first thing is like, hey, if I tell you you don't have to be perfect and I tell you you can get some questions wrong and still get the score that you want, that immediately eliminates a whole lot of anxiety. Right? You
right.
don't have to be perfect. You need to have the score that's in the range of of what last year's school students got accepted.
hmm
Right? So college admissions is very, very, very consistent. So if you say like, hey, an ABC university last year, the range of SATs was between 1260 and 1400, then you don't have to get a 1600. Just fall in that ballpark, and the odds will be high that you will check that box to get ahead. So that's the first thing I do. I always The second thing is I have a SMART framework that I work off of, right? SMART is an acronym. It is not like the goal setting tool. SMART is an acronym.
You breaking up a little bit, Charles. We have lost him for the moment, and hopefully his connection, he'll reconnect. But while we wait for him, uh, the question I was about to ask Charles was about the College Board's SAT college and career readiness benchmarks. And they're designed to help students, families, and educators understand the level of academic preparedness students need to be successful in college and their careers. Now, these benchmarks serve as indicators of whether students are on track to succeed in their college level courses, specifically in the areas of math and evidence based reading and writing. And so you're back. I see you, but okay, say something. Your face is frozen. I think this is still not the best connection. You sound like you're trying to come through. Can you hear me? This technology. When it works so well, and when it doesn't, it's a pain. Okay, so again, I was talking about the evidence-based reading and writing benchmarks, and a score of 480 or higher in the evidence-based reading and writing section indicates that a student has a 75% chance of earning at least a C in their first semester credit-bearing college courses in literature, history, social science, and writing classes. The math benchmark is a score of 530 or higher in the math section. That signifies that a student has a 75% chance of earning at least a C in the first semester credit bearing college courses in algebra, statistics, pre-calculus, or calculus. And the according to College Board data from 2019, only 21% of Black students met the SAT college and career readiness benchmarks, compared to 59% of white students. When we talk about achievement gaps, that's one of the statistics that are often quoted. So I wanted to give you guys some background in terms of what those statistics, what that benchmark, or if you hear college and career readiness benchmarks with the SAT, that's what they're comparing to. Okay, you look a little better, but you're still frozen. Hello? Say something else. All I hear is a little static. If you can hear me, I was talking about the SAO. You're back out again. Still talking about the benchmarks. Another stat that I had gathered, wanted to discuss with Charles, was about advanced placement exams, also known as AP exams. AP exam participation and performance also show disparities. In 2019, Black students made up 15.9% of high school graduates in the United States, but they only accounted for 9.4% of AP exam takers. Furthermore, only 31.1% of Black students scored a 3 or higher on the AP exam, which is the typical threshold for college credit, compared to 61.8% of white students. All of these statistics can be somewhat discouraging, but if you are at least aware of them, it sort of is a benchmark. It's a placeholder in terms of, okay, if I can do better than that, right? Um, that's a start. But uh, as you, one of my quotes that I like to stand by, and it's a value mission statement, is that I'm always striving for my best. And then when I coach families, kids and families, I'm always, that's my motto, is that we're going to strive for our best. Um, and better than bad's unacceptable. Better than good is not good enough. So um, these stats are bad, and we're not accepting better than bad. We're just doing better than good is not good enough. Charles, are you back with me? All right, you sound the sound is a little better. Your picture is still frozen, but I had gathered some stats. So while you've been in and out, I've just been quoting some stats, and I was saying that the regarding the achievement gap, and I was like, that's bad. That's bad news. Doing better than bad is unacceptable. Better than good is not good enough. We're going to strive for the best. Although, like you were saying, we don't have to be perfect. I lost you again. Let me see. I think there was okay. Let's try it one more time. One more again.
One more time. I'm sorry. Yes. So if anybody is familiar with New York City, what I try to do is what Jeffrey Canada did with Harlem Children's Home. So I am in a city where the achievement gap is massive, right? The report card,
I can't understand a thing you're saying. I know you said something about the achievement gap. Oh boy. Like I said, when it works, it's wonderful. When it doesn't, um, this reminds me of a time when I used to assist an investor, and he had a celebrity on his podcast, and his connection was just like this. It was so amazing that it takes a lot to get on really high level folks' calendars and make the connections and get them all set up. And I guess Charles is right up there in terms of getting on his calendar and getting him here tonight. But when these connections, the internet goes down, it's brutal because I'm here talking to you guys. Let's see what's going on in the comments. All right, we've got Rod Carter. Let's show what he's saying. Rod says that he's excited that Charles is attempting to change the world here in the Baltimore area. He also knows Dr. Dante Ryan has been successful in rising the standardized test scores. And outside the test scoring, the key for a student to be successful is the mental preparation. Charles, can you say something? Charles? All right. And we've got Patricia who's watching. She was a guest a couple of weeks ago with her daughter Maddie, and she gets adults ready, gets our teens adult ready, and she also works with test readiness. So I hope that there are parents who are listening tonight or in the future, if they listen to the replay, your involvement is, you play a significant role, right, in your students' academic success. And while we're talking tonight about these standardized tests, I think we all agree that their performance in the classroom and their grades are the main priority, right? But because teaching styles are different, curriculums are varied across the nation, because there's sometimes grade inflation or deflation, you know, these standardized tests are hoping to sort of glean where comparisons can be made. Because when it's a choice of, do I let um, Rod or Patricia, have this spot, and this could be a spot in a high school. You know, there are high school entrance standardized tests. It could be college admission spots. It could be um, scholarships, internships. It could be for advanced placement credit, right? There are standardized tests that are pretty much a part of any scholar's um, expectation that they're going to come across. And so the point I think that we're trying to make in having Charles share some of the strategies and some of the information that he's gleaned and um, what he coaches for is that everything should have a strategy, right? Because it's hard, because it might be culturally biased, because they keep changing it, uh, is not an acceptable excuse for us not to address it, right? And so um, our hope is that folks will recognize what requirements are, and then we will create a strategy in which to address the requirements. And as I'm saying, I want us to all strive for the best and um, and alleviate. A lot of our stress comes from lack of knowledge. And one of my favorite things to say of late is we don't know what we don't know. But there are those of us who are expert in some of these arenas, in some of these areas. We've established our expertise, and we work hard to try to share our expertise so that uh, those of us who are in the know are sharing this information, right? So the more we know, the better prepared we can be, the better prepared we can have in terms of our answers. But even if we don't necessarily need to have the right answer, we can have a strategy because each test is different. There are some tests for which it's okay to make, a wrong answer. They're going to, throw out X number of questions anyway. For some tests, it's better to leave the questions blank than to answer. And then for some, it's like, you go for it. But you need to know which strategies work in which environments, which tests. Um, and so that's why it's good to have test prep. That's why it's good to work with someone like a Charles and a Patricia or anyone, including the resources at your local schools. Anytime any of the nonprofit organizations or social organizations or your church, anytime anyone is offering an ability for you to do test prep, you should take advantage of it. So um, that's the message that we're going to drive home tonight, if nothing else. Um, and as parents, back speaking to you in terms of the role that you guys play, you obviously can't take these tests for our young people, but you can give them a sense that they're not a measure, right, of those scores also. And we want to reinforce that. I'm sure you all know that as well, but if you can constantly keep furthermost in their minds that they are not a measure of their scores, and with some preparation and some studying and all of that, they can perhaps advance their scores or increase their scores. Um, because again, the test is not a measure of your intelligence. Okay, so that's the other thing. A lot of times we feel like, oh, I got I didn't get the desired score. So that makes me, less than, dumb, stupid. I'm never going to get into that school that I want to attend, or I'm never going to achieve, an honor of some sort that's based on a score. That's furthest from the truth, right? We are not the sum total of these scores, and it's not a measure of our intelligence or our worth. So all it is there are um, objectives, hurdles, different things that are put in place for us to get beyond, to get to that next ring up the ladder, or to reach the next goal or milestone along our path. So um, the better prepared we are in these instances, the better it will be in terms of our outcome. And so Charles is still out there. One of the things that I wanted to share, he and I are colleagues, and he, along with Patricia Wicks, who's been on, and Holly Reed, who's been on, and Tamika Williamson, who's been on, and Nancy Bradford, are all going to be participating in a virtual summit this coming April 29th, which is the last Saturday of the month. And it's the Parent Empowered for College Bound Success Virtual Summit. It will begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And again, it's virtual. And it is the ultimate summit for parents of Black college bound middle school and high school students. We ideally want parents of middle school kids on the summit, as well as high school students, because there are certain strategies, certain things that are vital for your information that you need to know before you start the ninth grade. Now, if you're in the ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, it's not too late, but some of these strategies are best implemented prior to you entering high school. So we definitely want middle school parents on the summit. And so we we want you to register in advance at bit.ly/April virtual summit. Again, it's register in advance at bit.ly/April virtual summit. And so there's more information there for you. I also am asking everyone, I don't know if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, but whatever channel, you can continue to use those channels. But I definitely need to up my subscriptions on my YouTube channel. So if you would please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'm at Coach Pamm with two M's. That's Coach Pamm with two M's. So I have enjoyed what bit of conversation I've had with Charles. I think he's going to be back with us again next Sunday, along with several of my other colleagues that will be um, representing in the virtual summit that's later on at the end of the month at the Parent Empowered for College Bound Success Summit. So please be sure to register in advance. Again, here's the bit.ly, bit.ly/April Virtual Summit. And so join us again next Sunday at 7 p.m. Charles will be back, I think, along with Nancy Bradford, and I think Patricia Wicks is going to be joining me. I'm not sure. All six of us are not necessarily going to be available, but I know Charles is supposed to be back with us next week. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for your time and for your attention, and for being a concerned citizen, a concerned parent, um, and wanting to advance our young people. And so, with that, I say good night.